Welcome back, everybody. It is Black History Month. Me personally, I don't celebrate Black History Month. I only celebrate Black History Day. And if you don't know when that is, it's every day. But for the black people that do celebrate Black History Month, I made this video to show you how it's being used against us. Check this out.
All right, so first question. Can you name who this person is right here?
That's Harriet Tubman.
All right, that's correct.
Next.
All right, next one.
We got it.
Can you name who this
Jackie
person is?
Robinson, baby. We know our Black history, baby. Don't ever play.
Frederick Douglass?
Frederick Douglass,
that's
yeah.
correct.
We got that. Next.
3 for 3. All right, next one. Can you name who this person is?
Smart. I can't name that nigga.
He made peanut butter.
Yep.
He did?
He made peanut butter, yeah.
He didn't make it, but
Carter.
Harvard.
Carver.
Yeah, Harvard.
See,
George Washington
what's his
Carver.
first
George
name?
Washington Carver.
All right, last one. Can you name who this person is?
Sojourner Truth.
Damn.
Yeah,
okay.
don't play with it.
Shouts out to them. And although they got all the answers right, a correction still needs to be made.
We know our Black history.
No, this does not mean you know Black history. It means you know the Black history that they teach us. What do I mean by that? Well, if you must know,
I must know. I got to know, nigga. What's up?
well, I can show you better than I can tell you. And I'll use one of the people they were asked about as an example.
George Washington Carver.
Okay.
George Washington Carver didn't die until 1943, which meant that he came halfway almost into this century, and yet people are still not familiar with what this man did. From the peanut, he came up with a process for making instants and was the forerunner of the instant products here in the United States, drying them out and serving them instantly. That is your man that first did this. He also came up with a form of plastic. That whole idea of converting plastics and making different things from them was granted by Dr. George Washington Carver. And the last one you must remember, because people will seem to have forgotten this. During World War II, the United States had a rubber shortage. Again, because the islands that were held by Japan would not let rubber loose to the United States war effort. Anything that was using rubber, mainly for tires, there was a lack of it. And the United States war effort was grinding to a halt. They were becoming very frightened because once the tires would wear out that they had, they couldn't retread them because they could not get rubber. George Washington Carver invented synthetic rubber.
This man invented a process for creating instant food. He was the first person to use plastic to make various products, and he was instrumental in helping the U.S. win World War II. These are 3 lifetime achievements by one man, and these aren't even all the achievements. We hear about him every Black History Month. There's schools and libraries named after him. We always hear about him, but we never get any context. We never know why he's so important. All we know him for is
Peanut butter.
Yep.
He made peanut butter, yeah.
So why do we learn about him without knowing any of the context? Well, they don't want us knowing that we're capable of doing such things. Because if we do, we might get the bright idea of creating our own stuff, our own systems, our own communities, our own civilization without them. And to get a better understanding of this, let's look at the man that created what will become Black History Month.
Meet Carter G. Woodson, and trust me, his history is just as important as the history he fought to preserve.
Carter G. Woodson, I have to give some of my strongest support and respect for.
He started by publishing real Black history books. And let's just say that not everybody was happy about it.
That's why when Carter G. began to initiate things that whites wouldn't fund, he broke the line. He broke the line that said a nigga don't do nothing unless a white man say okay.
White educators pushed back, refusing to change their curriculums. Libraries refused to carry his books. And Black teachers who used his materials were threatened with losing their jobs. He knew firsthand how Black history was erased, ignored, and rewritten by those in power.
Not only did he say he wished that these Negroes didn't kiss the ass of the whites to get the grant money, because when it came to him, they expected him to kiss the ass because the others had kissed the ass. And he found it was hard. And he got, say, $25,000 from the Carnegie Foundation. He got $37,000 from the Laura Spelman Fund. He got $25,000 from the Rockefeller Foundation. But as soon as he didn't do what they asked him to do, or as soon as they kept telling him, well, we need you to merge your research with that of Robert Moulton at Tuskegee. We know Moulton to be a spy. Right. Carter G don't know that, but Carter says, I ain't working with that damn fool. I'll never work with him. And he lost a grant, big $25,000, not to work with Moulton. We know Moulton a spy. He didn't know. He just watched Moulton. And they told Carter G, we won't give you money unless you work with a Negro who we approve of. Then they started establishing white scholars who Carter G would have to have his money dispensed to him through white scholars.
But Woodson, he never stopped. He knew that if he didn't write our history, it was going to be erased. He once said, if you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions.
And that right there is what it's all about. Controlling our thoughts to control our actions. And that's how they use Black History Month and Black history as a whole to shape our worldview. And the best example of this is the most renowned Black History Month honoree, Dr. Martin Luther King. Now don't get me wrong, we definitely should learn about MLK. The problem is, we only learn about him and others like him that fought to integrate into the system, because they want us to believe that the best route, the only route to go, is to fight to integrate into their system where they have all the power, as opposed to doing for self and creating our own. That's why we learn so much about the Black integrationists and very little about Black leaders who wanted us to take a different approach.
The Black people in this country have been like a misfit white married to the white man here who hasn't treated us right. And today, since we have given up all hope of him ever changing, we want a divorce. We want a complete separation, but we want a property settlement.
I've always asked, has the integration helped to harm the Black community? I think it harmed.
Knocked the Black folks' brains out. Black folk had 100 times more before social integration hit. When I was a kid, see, we had something. We didn't have the resources we needed as much as we needed, but we had something. We had communities. We had communities all over America. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and we were looking for this social integration. You know why? Because we had our own businesses there. We had our own businesses. We owned the buses. When all of a sudden, you all started talking about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King going down to Alabama, want to integrate the bus lines. Integrate whose bus lines? White bus lines. What they want? They didn't want to own and control and get the resource. They just want to sit on the front of it. And we're saying we also had our own cab companies. We had our own restaurants. We had our own hotels. We had our own school systems.
My dad was a principal of one of those schools. My grandfather was a principal of one of those schools. And I know what they wanted. I never heard my dad say that he wanted to break up the community and close the school.
But yeah, all we learn about is how we fought to integrate. And to make matters worse, not only do we not learn about how we were thriving on our own, we also don't learn what they did to stop that.
I went to middle school on Greenwood Avenue. And so when I got to the University of Oklahoma in 1997, sitting in an African-American studies class, and the professor is talking about this place called Black Wall Street and all of the wonderful things and the businesses and the wealth, I raised my hand up and said, that's not correct. I'm from Greenwood, and I've never heard this story.
They're not teaching us these things.
There are also like so many different cities and like Black towns that were thriving. Yeah. That we don't like. We hear about Tulsa. Yeah. But there are so many more.
This is Lake Lanier. It's a lake in Forsyth County, Georgia, where people go swimming and boating and fishing and do a bunch of other lakey things. But before it was Lake Lanier, it was a town called Oscarville, Georgia. A mob of white men terrorized, drove out, or killed all the Black people in the surrounding area. And they did that until the entire Black community of Oscarville disappeared. Ever heard of Collegia, Alabama? It was once a thriving Black community with a Black college, the first Black railroad, and literally hundreds of family homes. Today, it's Lake Martin. Let me introduce you to a place called Central Park. Central Park used to have a Black community in it called York Hill. But the city of New York destroyed York Hill so that they could build the Central Park Reservoir. When the residents of York Hill were kicked out of their homes, they fled to another Black community nearby called Seneca Village. And then a few years later, New York destroyed Seneca Village too, so that they could build Central Park on top of it. Henry and McKee Islands, which is now located under Lake Guntersville in Alabama. And Vanport, Oregon, which is now located under Delta Park. And all of these towns, which are currently literally underwater. The craziest part of this story is that I work a few blocks away from a place where the government disappeared 2 black communities, and until recently, I didn't know about any of it.
I didn't know. Are you noticing the pattern? See, that's how they controlled our thoughts. Now let's see how it impacted our actions.
Think about this. Now, yes, the black Wall Streets were burned out, but guess what? We still owned the land. And after many of those massacres, those brothers and sisters came back to build. Do you know what happened? The second and third generation of those black Wall Streets, not all, but several, they didn't believe in an independent black community. Wow. By then, integration had come.
That's what happened with integration, though. They broke up the community and closed the school.
And the bus lines, an example, we don't kill our buses. Right. Social integration.
They said, well, why do I want to keep an independent black community? I could go live with the white folks.
In Winston-Salem, we had our own movie theaters. We had the Lincoln and Lafayette. There was a Lincoln and Lafayette theater in every major city and every black community in America. And so guess what? Blacks didn't want to go to the black theaters and want to go to the white theaters.
Look at our HBCUs now. For people who talk about integration killed us.
Social integration is a divisive issue. It divides you. It doesn't pull you together. It's a weakening process. You understand what I'm saying, bro? It weakens you.
Look at the state of the HBCU right now. They are closing down, threatened with financial sabotage. Why? Because the predominantly white institutions are stealing all our top athletes. You follow me? They're offering more scholarship money, and they're stealing the black child away from the HBCU campus. Is the government making us send our kids to the PWIs? No.
If you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions.
And these tactics aren't restricted to academia. Check out this post from Cartoon Network celebrating various black cartoon characters. I mean, yeah, that's cool. However, they left out this guy.
So Bugs Bunny and the concept of a trickster rabbit generally are going to come from African American folklore from a character called Brer Rabbit. As a slight correction to my last video, it's going to be Warner Brothers, not Disney, that makes Bugs Bunny, but ironically enough, both Warner Brothers and Disney steal the concept of Brer Rabbit at different points in time.
And of course, Cartoon Network won't mention that. They can't have us knowing that we created stuff. And that's why when it comes to academia, entertainment, and so on and so forth, they have one rule.
The African is never to be presented in his glory.
Let's go back to what, in my opinion, is the biggest snub in Grammy's history. No, not that. In 2021, Lil Baby was nominated for his powerful song, The Bigger Picture, where he had lyrics like, "I'm with my kind if they right or they wrong," and "They know that we a problem together. They know that we can storm any weather." He also said, "Now we got the power that we need to have. They don't want us with it, and that's why they mad." He's saying real shit that we really need to hear, but instead of awarding that, they gave the Grammy to Meg for Savage. Now, I'm not saying Meg Thee Stallion didn't deserve a Grammy before all you hot girls come at me. This isn't about either artist, and it isn't about the song. It's about the message. Lil Baby is trying to get us to see the bigger picture, but instead, they want to make sure we see ourselves as
Savages who came out of the trees. We were made to believe that. We believed that all the time.
And Hollywood is no different.
Because Hollywood tried to send us a message. Look at Denzel. Denzel, to me, is one of the greatest actors ever. But what did they do to Denzel?
Denzel was nominated for Cry Freedom for playing Steve Biko. He lost. He was nominated for playing Malcolm X. He lost. He was nominated for playing Rubin Carter. He lost. These are 3 honorable men in our community, and he lost.
The African is never to be presented in his glory. He's only to be presented as a sick man, a beaten man, a slave, or a colonial, or a primitive.
But he won for playing a criminal cop in Training Day, and he won for playing a slave in Glory. A criminal cop and a slave.
You cannot grow out of such images.
And definitely, Halle Berry wasn't an accident. There's nothing more confused than Monster Ball.
So you mean to tell me that Monsters Ball was about a black woman whose husband, a black man, is on death row. And throughout the whole process, the woman is getting to fall in love with her husband's executioner, a white man. And to add insult to injury, the woman finds out that the man was the executioner in her husband's trial, but still stays and becomes numb to it. And the woman who played the character went on to win an Oscars.
That's heavy duty code. Guess where that's going? All over the world. With the Academy Award symbol legitimizing it.
Serving as the first black actress to ever win an Oscar in 2002. And no other black actress has won an Oscar. They've been nominated, but has not won an Oscar since.
And I understand the NAACP gave Halle Berry an Image Award for the role. The world sees us as those two roles now. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that the night I saw Monster Ball, the black audience stood up and gave it a standing ovation. They weren't mad. That's what bothered me. I said something happened to the socialization process, to the education process. It got out of hand. It got out of control.
It did get out of hand. It did get out of control. And more specifically, our education got out of control when it got out of our hands.
My dad was a Black Panther, but, you know, when Disney makes Black Panther, now when you look it up, you don't see my dad protecting his neighborhood. You see this character that's made for Black people to idolize that was designed by a white person and put out by a white company. So it's controlling the narrative to say, we're going to show you Harriet Tubman, we're not going to show you Nat Turner. And they do it every chance they get. Maleficent, they called her race of people the Moors. And the Moors are, and I just saw it again. I was just like, yo, if you erase our history, most Black people, we think we came from slaves. We don't know our bloodline. And we're given Black History Month and we take that like it's some gift to us. No, it's a programming to us, because also what they show in Black History Month is us getting hosed down, reminding us that we were slaves. Like, what if we had, remember when I cheated on you month? Remember when you first found the text messages? How does that make you feel? It makes you feel depleted and defeated.
You cannot grow out of such images.
And that's why it's imperative that we no longer rely on our oppressors to educate our children and tell our story, because the truth is important.
Why do white people pay so much attention to Black people if they don't like them?
They're in every TV commercial. They get more privileges to come into society. They come into every college on preferential with lower test scores. You can't ever say anything negative. You can lose your job. You have your entire life obliterated if you say something racist. And yet we have to hear about how racist we are. How about you take responsibility for your own actions instead of blaming the white man? That's not racist. That's noticing.
You would think if you didn't like something, why would you be paying attention to it? I don't pay attention to things I don't like.
What's the answer?
The answer is the liar knows what lie he told.
And so some of what I believe has contributed to the downfall of some of these communities has nothing to do with white people.
You see what I'm saying? So even if I made it deceitful and I made you think that the answer is over here, but the answer is really over here, I'm still going to be looking over here. Me, the one that tricked, because I know this is the right answer.
The truth is very important.
Black people who were brought to this country were stripped of their names, language, culture, religion, God, and taken totally away from the history of themselves.
Black people have lost their identity, but our oppressors have not lost our identity.
Don't you realize that when you turn a people upside down and inside out, then sell them not for a day, not for a year, but for 300 years?
No matter how negative it is imperative that you learn the truth.
And deny us the human right to know, to read a book, to learn, to understand.
They conquer you, they colonize you, they enslave you, they simply make your history disappear.
And then, after 300 years of that, you allow us into the church, but by that time, you've painted Jesus white, God white, the angels white.
To make it look like they conquered, colonized, and enslaved nobodies.
And then all these black people have been subjected to a form of white supremacy, which produces in the reverse a black inferiority.
It is imperative that students learn the truth of our history. However sad, however mordant, however terrible, we must know it.
As a man thinketh, so is he. And as long as our people think the way they think, we will never be able to do what we as a people should do to correct our condition.
Instead of trying to change the white man in your mind and make you accept us, we change the mind of the black man and make him accept himself.
The only way out of something is all the way through it. You must see it, read it, study it, and then you can pass through it.
And as soon as he accepts himself, he'll solve his own problem. He won't be trying to force himself into your factory and into your bedroom and into your kitchen.
This is why an education system that is designed for a people must be designed by the people from their own perspective according to their own problems and needs as they see fit.
Things aren't fair. You don't get equal opportunities. You get the opportunities that you create for yourself.
Just like Dr. Woodson, after studying his people and observing them, saw this deep need for learning about their own history and decided to have African American historians to do the work and devise a course plan for their people to study and get familiar with their history and their people. A solution by Black people for Black people. And so, our education systems must be primarily designed for Black people, by Black people, with Black people in mind, with Black needs in mind, and Black solutions and educational materials in mind, with the goal of creating a well-organized, educated, successful, self-sufficient, and thriving Black societies in the motherland and in the diaspora. This is the message that I believe Dr. Carter Godwin Woodson wanted to impart to us. Educate your people by yourself and for yourself.
If they're fighting this hard to keep us from knowing our history, that means we need to fight even harder to learn it. He gave us the blueprint. Now it's up to us.